They thought I was deaf. They thought I was senile. They stood in my own kitchen, the one where I raised them, and laughed about putting me away like yesterday's trash. But here's what my children didn't know: I heard every single word. And I recorded every single conversation. They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but justice is served with evidence, witnesses, and a grandmother who taught English for 35 years and knows exactly how to tell a story that can't be ignored. Before I begin my story, let me know in the comments where you are listening from and what time it is. I just want to know I'm not alone in this. And if you feel moved by what you hear, consider subscribing. It helps more people become aware of the reality of elder abuse. Now let me tell you what really happened. My name is Evelyn Carter, and I want you to understand something right from the start. I am not losing my mind. I never was. But that's what they wanted everyone to believe. It started 8 months after my stroke. It wasn't a bad one, thank the Lord. The doctors said I was lucky, minimal damage, good recovery potential. But it left me with a tremor in my right hand and some weakness on my right side. Nothing I couldn't manage with a little help and determination. I've always been determined. I'd been a widow for 8 years by then. My Harold passed from cancer, and I'd learned to live alone in the house we'd shared for 40 years. Every corner held a memory. The kitchen where we'd had coffee every morning. The porch where we'd watched sunsets. The garden Harold had planted for me, which I still tended with these aging hands. After the stroke, my eldest son Marcus came to the hospital with that look on his face. You know, the one, that careful, concerned expression that people wear when they're about to reorganize your entire life. His wife Jennifer stood behind him, her hand on his shoulder, nodding at everything he said. "Mom, you can't live alone anymore," Marcus said, pulling a chair close to my hospital bed. "What if something happens and no one's there?" "I have my medical alert button," I reminded him. That's how they'd found me after the stroke. I'd pressed it, and the ambulance came within minutes. That's not enough. Jennifer stepped forward, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. "Evelyn, we've been talking and we think you need someone there. Full-time care." My other 2 children arrived that evening. Patricia, my middle child, brought flowers and the same concerned expression. David, my youngest, stood awkwardly by the door, barely making eye contact. They'd clearly discussed this among themselves before coming to me. "We found a wonderful woman," Patricia said. "Her name is Sophia Martinez. She's a certified home health aide, and she has excellent references. She can help with meals, medication, physical therapy, exercises, everything." I didn't want a stranger in my home. But I also knew they were right about one thing: I did need help, at least for a while. The tremor made cooking difficult. The weakness made getting in and out of the shower dangerous. "Fine," I said. "But this is temporary. Until I'm stronger." They all exchanged glances. That should have been my first warning. Sophia started the following Monday. She was a petite woman in her 30s with kind eyes and a gentle manner. She didn't treat me like I was fragile or stupid, which I appreciated immediately. "Mrs. Carter," she said that first day, "I'm here to help you, not take over your life. You tell me what you need, and we'll work together. This is still your home." I liked her instantly. My children, however, started visiting much more frequently. At first, I thought it was sweet. Marcus would stop by twice a week. Patricia came for lunch every Thursday. Even David made an effort to visit on Sundays. But then I started noticing things. Marcus spent a lot of time in Harold's old study going through papers. "Just organizing things, Mom," he'd say. "Making sure all your important documents are in order." Jennifer started asking questions about my finances. "Do you have everything set up for automatic payments? We wouldn't want you to forget a bill and lose electricity or something." Patricia brought up the subject of power of attorney. "It's just a safety measure, Mom. In case you're ever unable to make decisions for yourself. It's what responsible people do." I told them I'd think about it. That's when the comments about my memory started. "Mom, you told me that story yesterday," Marcus would say even when I hadn't. "Are you sure you took your medication?" Patricia would ask, even though Sophia and I had a perfect system. "You seem confused, Mom," David would observe whenever I disagreed with them about anything. It was subtle at first. So subtle I questioned myself. Had I repeated that story? Was I confused about the day? But then I realized something: they only said these things when Sophia wasn't in the room. One afternoon, about 3 months after Sophia started, I was sitting in my armchair in the living room. I dozed off. The medication made me drowsy in the afternoons. I woke to the sound of voices in the kitchen. My children thought I was asleep. And they thought my hearing had gotten worse. It hadn't. Not at all. "She's getting worse," Marcus said. "Did you see how she couldn't remember what day it was?" "That's because you kept telling her it was Tuesday when it was actually Wednesday," Patricia replied. "Marcus, we agreed not to gaslight her too hard. We just need to establish a pattern." My blood turned to ice. "The aide is a problem," Jennifer's voice cut in. "She keeps everything too organized. Makes mom look more competent than she is. We can't fire her, David said quietly. That would look suspicious. Besides, mom likes her. We don't need to fire her, Marcus replied. We just need to document mom's decline. Get witnesses, and then we move forward with the plan. I sat frozen in my chair, my heart pounding so hard I thought they'd hear it from the kitchen. How much longer? Patricia asked. Another month or two, Marcus said. We'll have power of attorney by Christmas. Then we can start liquidating assets. This house alone is worth $500,000. They were talking about my life, my home, my independence, like I was already gone. I waited until they left before I allowed myself to cry. Sophia found me there 20 minutes later, tears streaming down my face. Mrs. Carter, what's wrong? I couldn't tell her. Not yet. I didn't know who to trust. But that night I made a decision. I picked up my phone. My grandson had taught me how to use it well before all this started. And I figured out how to use the voice recording app. If they thought I was losing my mind, I'd let them think it. But I was going to record every single word they said, and when the time was right, I was going to make sure everyone heard exactly who my children really were. The next morning, I sat at my kitchen table with Sophia, my hands wrapped around a cup of coffee that had gone cold. I'd barely slept. The words from yesterday's conversation kept playing in my mind like a terrible song I couldn't stop hearing. Mrs. Carter, you look exhausted, Sophia said gently. Did you sleep at all? I looked at her carefully, really looked at her. In the 3 months she'd been with me, she'd never once treated me like I was incompetent. She'd never rolled her eyes when I asked questions or spoke to me in that slow, loud voice people use with the elderly. She'd been nothing but respectful and kind. I made a choice. Sophia, I need to tell you something. And I need you to listen to all of it before you say anything. She set down her own coffee cup and gave me her full attention. I told her everything. About the comments, about the conversation I'd overheard, about their plans to take power of attorney and sell my house. When I finished, tears were streaming down my face again. Sophia reached across the table and took my hand. Mrs. Carter, Evelyn, I believe you, every word. She squeezed my hand. And I've noticed things too. The way they ask me to leave the room when they visit. How they ask me questions about your daily routine, your memory, whether you've seemed confused. I thought I was imagining it. You weren't imagining anything. What do you want to do? She asked. I want proof. I said real proof. So that when I confront them, they can't lie their way out of it. Sophia nodded slowly. Your phone has a recording app. Do you know how to use it? My grandson showed me. I already figured it out last night. A small smile crossed Sophia's face. Then we document everything. But Evelyn, we have to be smart about this. If they catch you recording, they won't, I said firmly. Because they think I'm too senile to figure out my own phone. Over the next week I practiced. I learned to start the recording app without looking at my phone, to keep it in my cardigan pocket with the microphone facing outward. Sophia helped me test it. The audio quality was surprisingly good. Marcus came by that Thursday. I had my phone ready. He found me in the living room doing the crossword puzzle. I deliberately left 2 clues unsolved, ones I knew the answers to. Hey Mom, he said, kissing my cheek. How are you feeling? Oh, I'm fine, dear. Just working on this puzzle. He glanced at it. Having trouble? A little, I lied. Some of these clues are hard today. He picked up the newspaper. This one's facade. Mom, it was right there. I'd known it was facade. I'd taught vocabulary for 35 years. But I said, oh, of course. I don't know why I couldn't see that. He patted my shoulder. And I saw the satisfaction in his eyes. He thought he'd caught me failing. After some small talk, he moved to the real reason for his visit. Mom, I was going through some of your financial papers in the study. Do you know you have 3 different savings accounts? That seems unnecessarily complicated. Your father set those up years ago, I said truthfully. Right, but Dad's been gone 8 years. Maybe it's time to simplify things, consolidate. I could help you do that. That's sweet of you, Marcus, but I managed just fine. His jaw tightened slightly. Do you though? Jennifer told me you forgot to pay the electric bill last month. That was a lie. I paid it on time as I always did. I don't think that's right, I said carefully. Mum, the company sent a reminder notice. Jennifer saw it on the counter. I knew what he was doing, creating false memories, making me doubt myself. But now I had him on recording, lying about something that could be easily verified. Well, if you say so, I said, playing along. I suppose I should have you look at the finances. That's what I'm here for, he said warmly. Then he leaned closer. Mom, have you thought any more about the power of attorney? It would really give me peace of mind. I'm still thinking about it. And after he left, I played back the recording. Every word was crystal clear. Sophia came in from the kitchen, where she'd been deliberately making noise so Marcus would know she was there, but not close enough to hear our conversation. Did you get it? She asked. I nodded and played it for her. His building a case, Sophia said, her face grim. making you look incompetent, and lying about bills to create evidence of your supposed decline. I know, I said. But now I have him lying on tape. And that's just the beginning. Over the next 3 weeks, I recorded everything. Every visit, every comment, every subtle manipulation. Patricia came by and noticed that I'd worn the same sweater 2 days in a row. I hadn't, she was lying. But I recorded her telling Jennifer on the phone later that I was losing track of personal hygiene. David asked me 3 times in one visit what year Harold died, then expressed concern to Marcus that I couldn't remember. I'd answered correctly each time, but he pretended I hadn't. Jennifer brought up a conversation we'd supposedly had about me wanting to move to a nursing home. We'd never had that conversation. When I said so, she looked at Marcus with exaggerated worry. See, she doesn't remember. I recorded it all. But the worst came on a Sunday afternoon in late November. All 3 of my children came over together, which was unusual. They thought I was napping upstairs, but I'd come down quietly and heard them in the dining room. My phone was recording in my pocket. The lawyer says we need medical documentation, Marcus said. Professional opinions that she's declining. Can we get Dr. Wilson to write something? Patricia asked. He's been her doctor for 20 years. He won't, David said. I already asked subtly. He says she's sharp as ever, just physically recovering from the stroke. Then we need a different doctor, Jennifer said flatly. Someone who'll see what we need them to see. I have a guy, Marcus said. Does consultations for nursing home placements. He evaluates cognitive function. If we bring Mom in and prep him beforehand about her symptoms, he'll document what we need. That's fraud, David said quietly. That's protecting our inheritance, Marcus shot back. Do you want to wait until she marries some old man who convinces her to leave everything to him? Or worse, decides to donate it all to charity? She's not thinking clearly, David. We're helping her. Patricia laughed. Can you imagine? Mom on one of those dating apps. They all laughed. In my dining room, laughing about my life like it was a joke. What about the aide? Jennifer asked. She's around all the time. She could be a problem. Sophia's not a problem, Marcus said dismissively. She's hired help. When we have power of attorney, we'll let her go. Mom won't even remember her name in 6 months anyway. I had to put my hand over my mouth to keep from crying out. So we're agreed. Marcus continued. I'll set up the appointment with Dr. Reynolds for next week. We'll all go with Mom, show a united family front. We'll mention the forgotten bills, the repeated stories, the confusion about dates. He'll do his evaluation and we'll have the documentation we need. And then? Patricia asked. And then we file for power of attorney. Once we have that, we put the house on the market immediately. With this real estate market, we could have it sold by February. Split 3 ways, that's over $160,000 each, plus whatever's in her accounts. What about the grandkids? David asked. Mom always said she wanted to leave something for them. The grandkids are fine, Marcus said irritably. They don't need handouts, we're her children. This is our inheritance and we've waited long enough for it. I stood in the hallway, my whole body shaking, listening to my children divide up my life like vultures picking at a corpse. But my phone was recording every word. When they finally left, I went upstairs and locked my bedroom door. I sat on the edge of the bed I'd shared with Harold and cried harder than I'd cried since his funeral. Then I dried my eyes, straightened my shoulders, and did what I should have done weeks ago. I called a lawyer. The lawyer's name was Amanda Chen, and she came highly recommended by Sophia's cousin, who worked in a law office downtown. I couldn't risk calling anyone my children might know, and I certainly couldn't use the family lawyer. Marcus had already been in contact with him, I was sure of it. Amanda came to my house on a Tuesday morning when I knew none of my children would be visiting. She was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense manner that reminded me of myself when I was teaching. Mrs. Carter, she said, shaking my hand firmly, tell me everything. I did. And then I played her the recordings. She listened to all of them, her expression growing darker with each one. When the last recording finished, the one where my children discussed the fraudulent doctor's evaluation, she sat back in her chair and let out a long breath. Mrs. Carter, I'm going to be very direct with you. What your children are planning constitutes elder financial abuse and fraud. The fact that they're discussing falsifying medical records makes it even more serious. Can I stop them? I asked. Absolutely. But we need to be strategic. She pulled out a legal pad. First, these recordings. Maryland is a one-party consent state, which means you're legally allowed to record conversations you're part of. These are admissible as evidence. Relief flooded through me. I hadn't even thought to check if recording them was legal. Second, Amanda continued, we need to protect your assets immediately. Do you have a will? Yes. Harold and I made one together 20 years ago. Everything was supposed to be divided equally among the children, with trust funds established for the grandchildren. We're going to update that. Today if possible. You're of sound mind, and I can witness and notarize it myself. We'll also create a revocable living trust and transfer your major assets into it, with you as the trustee. That protects them from any power of attorney claim. But won't that look suspicious? I asked. If I suddenly change everything? Amanda smiled. Mrs. Carter, you have the right to manage your own affairs. You're not incompetent. We have the recordings that prove your children know that. They're the ones committing fraud, not you. But you're right that we need to be careful about timing. She thought for a moment. Here's what I suggest. Let them make their move. Let them take you to this Dr. Reynolds. But before that appointment, you and I will meet with your actual physician, Dr. Wilson, and have him do a complete cognitive evaluation. We'll document your perfect mental capacity. Then, when they produce their fraudulent evaluation, we'll have proof of their deception. Won't that be dangerous? Sophia asked from the doorway, where she'd been listening. If they get that fake evaluation, couldn't they use it somehow? Not if we act quickly, Amanda said. The moment they file for power of attorney based on false medical evidence, we file our response with the court. We present the real evaluation, the recordings, and evidence of their financial manipulation. We don't just stop them, we expose them. I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. There's one more thing, Amanda said carefully. Mrs. Carter, based on what I've heard in these recordings, your children have likely already begun accessing your finances illegally. We need to check your accounts, all of them. Look for unauthorized withdrawals, transfers, anything suspicious. My stomach dropped. You think they've already stolen from me? I think they've been planning this for a while, and people who plan this carefully often start small, testing to see if anyone notices. She was right. That afternoon, Sophia helped me gather every bank statement from the past 6 months. We spread them across the dining room table, and Amanda went through them line by line. It didn't take long to find. Here, Amanda said, pointing to my main checking account statement. 3 withdrawals of $900 each, just under the $1,000 threshold that would trigger extra scrutiny, all taken out at ATMs. I didn't make those withdrawals, I said, my voice shaking. I rarely use ATMs. I pay with checks or my debit card. Do you keep your debit card in your wallet? Amanda asked. Yes, always. And where do you keep your wallet? In my purse, in the hall closet. Then I remembered, Marcus knows where I keep it. He's gone into my purse before to get my medical insurance card when he took me to appointments. Amanda made notes. He could have easily taken your card, withdrawn the money, and returned it. Did you ever notice it missing? No, but I wouldn't have. I don't check for it unless I'm going out. We found more. Small transfers from my savings account to checking, then withdrawn, a check written to cash that I never wrote. But the signature looked remarkably like mine. $23,000, Amanda said, finally tallying it up. Over 5 months. They've been stealing from you systematically, Mrs. Carter. I felt sick. Not just because of the money, but because of what it meant. This wasn't a spontaneous plan born of greed. This was calculated, methodical theft from their own mother. We report this to the police, Amanda said firmly. Financial exploitation of an elderly person is a crime. Combined with the recordings and the attempted fraud, we're building a very strong case. They're my children, I whispered. Amanda's expression softened. I know, and I know this is incredibly painful. But Mrs. Carter, they're not treating you like their mother. They're treating you like an obstacle to money they think they're entitled to. She was right. I knew she was right. What happens next? I asked. Next, we document everything. I'm going to arrange for you to see Dr. Wilson this week for that cognitive evaluation. We'll also change your bank accounts, new account numbers, new passwords, everything. We'll set up online monitoring so you can see every transaction in real time. And most importantly, we're going to update your will and establish that trust. And then we wait for them to make their move. When they take you to Dr. Reynolds, you go. You act the way they expect you to act. Maybe you seem a little confused, a little forgetful. Let them think their plan is working. You want me to pretend? I asked. I want you to give them enough rope to hang themselves. Amanda said bluntly. Right now, we have recordings of them planning fraud. But if they actually go through with it, if they present a false medical evaluation to try to gain power of attorney, that's when we have them completely. That's when we go to court, present everything, and make sure they face real consequences. Sophia squeezed my hand. You don't have to do this, Evelyn. We could confront them now, stop them before it goes further. I thought about Harold. About the house we'd built together, the life we'd created. About the children I'd raised, who were now plotting to take everything from me. I thought about every time Marcus had patted my shoulder condescendingly. Every time Patricia had asked if I'd taken my medication in that worried voice. Every time David had avoided my eyes because he knew what they were doing was wrong but went along with it anyway. No, I said firmly. We do this Amanda's way. We document everything, and we make sure everyone knows exactly what they did. Amanda smiled. You're tougher than they think you are, Mrs. Carter. I taught middle school English for 35 years, I said. I've dealt with difficult children before. Over the next week, we put everything in place. Dr. Wilson gave me a complete cognitive evaluation, memory tests, problem-solving exercises, mental status examination. I scored perfectly on everything. Evelyn, he said kindly, your mind is as sharp as it's ever been. Whatever your children are worried about, it's not cognitive decline. Amanda had him write a detailed report, dated and notarized, documenting my complete mental competency. We changed all my bank accounts and passwords. Amanda helped me set up a new will, leaving most of my estate in trust for my 5 grandchildren, with only token amounts for my 3 children. She also added a clause explaining exactly why, stating that it was due to their financial exploitation and betrayal of my trust. If they contest the will, Amanda explained, this clause means they'll have to admit to the theft and fraud to argue against it. Most lawyers will advise them not to even try. I also wrote letters to each of my grandchildren, explaining what had happened and why I'd made the choices I did. Amanda placed them with the will, to be delivered when the time came. By the end of that week, I was protected. My assets were secured, my mental competency was documented, and I had evidence of everything my children had done. Now I just had to wait for them to walk into the trap they'd set for themselves. Marcus called on Sunday evening. Mom, I've made an appointment for you with a specialist. Dr. Reynolds. He evaluates cognitive function, just a routine thing, making sure you're recovering well from the stroke. Oh, I said, making my voice uncertain. Is that really necessary? It's just a precaution. We all want to make sure you're doing okay. The appointment's Thursday at 2. Will the others be coming too? Yes, we all want to be there to support you. Support me. The words tasted like poison. All right, I said softly, playing the part. If you think it's best. I do, Mom. We all do. We love you, and we want to take care of you. After I hung up, I sat in the quiet of my living room. Sophia had gone home for the evening. The house felt very empty. But I wasn't alone. I had Amanda, who was fighting for me. I had Sophia, who had become more than an aide. She was a friend. And I had something my children had underestimated. I had my mind, my strength, and my determination. They thought they were protecting their inheritance. But I was protecting my dignity, my independence, and my truth. Thursday was coming, and I was ready. Thursday morning. I dressed carefully. I chose an old cardigan that was slightly frayed at the cuffs and a pair of comfortable slacks. I left my hair a little messier than usual. I wanted to look exactly like what they expected, a confused elderly woman who needed her children's help. Sophia arrived early, as we'd planned. Are you sure about this? She asked, watching me prepare. I'm sure, I said, slipping my phone into my pocket. The recording app was already running. Amanda will be waiting for my call as soon as the appointment is over. Everything's going to be fine. I wish I could go with you. That's exactly why you can't. I reminded her. They think you're just the hired help. They need to believe they're in complete control. Marcus arrived at 1:30, a full half-hour early. Jennifer was with him, wearing what I called her serious occasion outfit, a dark pantsuit that made her look like she was going to a funeral. Perhaps she thought she was. Ready, Mom? Marcus asked, his voice cheerful in that forced way. I suppose so, I said, deliberately fumbling with my purse. Do I need to bring anything? Just yourself, Jennifer said, taking my arm a little too firmly. We'll take care of everything else. Patricia and David were already at the doctor's office when we arrived. It was in a medical building I'd never been to before, which struck me as odd. If this was truly about my health, why not see Dr. Wilson, who knew my complete medical history? But of course, I knew why. The waiting room was sterile and cold. Patricia hugged me, and I noticed she was wearing perfume. She never wore perfume to casual appointments. David nodded at me but still wouldn't meet my eyes. They were all dressed up, all playing their parts in this theatrical production of concern. Mrs. Carter. A nurse appeared in the doorway. Dr. Reynolds will see you now. Marcus stood immediately. We'll all come back with her. The nurse looked uncertain. Typically, we prefer to evaluate patients one-on-one. Our mother has had some memory issues, Jennifer interrupted smoothly. We need to be there to provide context. Surely you understand? The nurse nodded and led us back. Dr. Reynolds was a thin man in his 60s with gray hair and a practiced smile that never reached his eyes. His office was lined with certificates and diplomas, all positioned to be impressive. Mrs. Carter, he said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. Please, sit down. And you must be the children I spoke with, past tense. So Marcus had already contacted him, already prepared him. Amanda had been right about everything. Now then, Dr. Reynolds said, opening a folder. I understand you had a stroke several months ago. Yes, I said. In March. And how has your recovery been? I hesitated, playing uncertain. I think it's been all right, you think? He prompted. Mom's been having some trouble. Marcus interjected quickly. With her memory. She forgets conversations we've had. Repeats herself a lot. Dr. Reynolds made a note. I see. Mrs. Carter, do you remember what you had for breakfast this morning? I did perfectly. Oatmeal with blueberries and a cup of coffee. But I frowned as if trying to remember. I'm not sure. Toast maybe. She had oatmeal? Patricia said, her voice thick with false concern. She always has oatmeal, but she can't seem to remember it. More notes. Dr. Reynolds asked me a series of questions. What year it was, who the president was, simple math problems. I answered some correctly and deliberately hesitated or gave slightly wrong answers to others. It was surprisingly easy to play confused. Maybe because I'd seen my children do it to me for months. Can you count backward from 100 by sevens? Dr. Reynolds asked. This is a standard cognitive test. 193, 86, 79. I could do it in my sleep. 100, I said slowly. 93, I trailed off, looking confused. She's getting worse, David said quietly. It was the first time he'd spoken, even from last month. Dr. Reynolds nodded sympathetically. These things do progress. Mrs. Carter, I'm going to say 3 words and I want you to remember them. Can you do that for me? I'll try. Apple, table, penny. Can you repeat those back to me? Apple, table. I paused, genuinely thinking, then said nickel. Close, he said in that patronizing tone. Penny, not nickel. He asked me more questions, to draw a clock showing a specific time, to copy a simple geometric shape, to recall those 3 words again. I performed imperfectly, making the kinds of mistakes someone with genuine cognitive decline might make. All the while my phone was recording every word in my pocket. After about 30 minutes, Dr. Reynolds set down his pen. Mrs. Carter, would you mind waiting outside for a moment? I'd like to speak with your children, I said, standing slowly. Yes, of course. I shuffled out to the waiting room and the door closed behind me. But the waiting room shared a wall with his office, and the walls were thin. They didn't know I could hear them, or maybe they just didn't care. Your mother is showing clear signs of cognitive impairment, Dr. Reynolds said. Based on this evaluation, I would say she's in the early to moderate stages of dementia, likely vascular dementia related to her stroke. My blood ran cold, even though I'd expected this. Hearing the lie stated so professionally, so officially made it real. What does that mean for her care? Marcus asked. It means she needs supervision. She shouldn't be living alone or making important decisions. Financial, medical, legal. She needs someone with power of attorney to help manage her affairs. We've been trying to arrange that, Patricia said, but she's been resistant. That's common, Dr. Reynolds replied. Patients often lack insight into their own decline. But legally, if you can demonstrate that she lacks capacity, you can petition the court for guardianship or conservatorship. And this evaluation would support that. Jennifer asked. Absolutely. I'll write a detailed report documenting my findings. Given what I've observed today, combined with the history you've provided, I believe any court would find that Mrs. Carter requires assistance managing her affairs. I heard papers rustling. How soon can we move forward? Marcus asked. I'll have the report ready by tomorrow. Once you have it, you can file with the court. The process typically takes a few weeks. And in the meantime, David asked. In the meantime, I'd suggest limiting her access to financial accounts. For her own protection, of course. You wouldn't want her to make purchases she doesn't remember or fall victim to scams. They were planning it all, every detail. How to take control of my life, my money, my home. And they were getting professional help to do it. Thank you, doctor, Marcus said. This is exactly what we needed, not wanted, needed. Because they needed me to be incompetent. They needed me to be failing. They needed me to disappear so they could have what they thought was theirs. The door opened and they all filed out. Marcus paid the receptionist. In cash, I noticed, and we left. In the car on the way home, nobody said much. Patricia patted my hand, Jennifer commented on the weather. Marcus drove carefully as if I were made of glass. We love you, Mom, Marcus said as he walked me to my door. We're going to take care of everything. You don't need to worry about anything anymore. That's nice, dear, I said vaguely. Thank you for taking me. He kissed my cheek and left. I waited until his car pulled away. Then I walked inside, locked the door, and called Amanda. I'm coming over, she said immediately. Don't do anything. Don't call anyone else. Just wait for me. Sophia arrived first, letting herself in with her key. She found me sitting at the kitchen table shaking. Evelyn, she rushed over. What happened? They did it, I said. Everything you said they would do. The doctor lied. He's writing a report saying I have dementia. They're going to use it to take everything. But you recorded it. I nodded, pulling out my phone with trembling hands. Sophia pulled me into a hug. Then we have them. They did exactly what Amanda predicted. They walked right into the trap. Amanda arrived 20 minutes later with her briefcase and a determined expression. Play me the recording, she said. I did all of it. The fake evaluation. Dr. Reynolds' lies. The discussion about limiting my financial access. Every damning word. When it finished, Amanda smiled, actually smiled. Mrs. Carter? This is perfect. This is exactly what we needed. How is this perfect? I asked. He's going to write a report saying I'm incompetent. US. And that report is fraudulent medical documentation created to facilitate elder abuse and financial exploitation. When we present this recording in court, along with Dr. Wilson's legitimate evaluation, we don't just prove your competency, we prove criminal conspiracy. She pulled papers from her briefcase. Here's what happens next. They'll file for power of attorney or guardianship, probably within the next week or two. When they do, we'll be ready. We file our response immediately, presenting 1. Dr. Wilson's evaluation showing you're perfectly competent. 2. These recordings proving they knew you were competent and deliberately created false evidence. 3. Bank records showing they've already stolen $23,000 from you. 4. Evidence that Dr. Reynolds was paid to create fraudulent documentation. Amanda looked at me seriously. Mrs. Carter, when we present this to the court, your children won't just lose their case. They'll face criminal charges, elder abuse, fraud, theft, possibly conspiracy. Are you prepared for that? I thought about Harold, about the life we'd built, about the children I'd raised, who had grown into people I no longer recognized. I thought about Marcus laughing about putting me in the cheapest facility possible, about Patricia asking how much longer they had to wait, about David, who knew it was wrong but went along with it anyway. I thought about my grandchildren, who deserved better than parents who stole from their own mother. Yes, I said firmly. I'm prepared. Then we wait, Amanda said. We let them file their petition. And then we show the court exactly who they really are. The next 2 weeks were the longest of my life. I went about my daily routine as if nothing had changed. Sophia and I did my exercises. I worked on crossword puzzles. I tended to Harold's garden, even though it was nearly December and most things had stopped blooming. I tried to act normal. But inside I was wound tight as a spring, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Marcus called 3 times that first week, always with the same concerned tone. Just checking on you, Mom. How are you feeling? Fine, dear. I'd say, just fine. Are you remembering to take your medications? Sophia helps me with that. A pause. Right? Sophia, how's that going? She's wonderful. I don't know what I'd do without her. Another pause, longer this time. I could hear the frustration he was trying to hide. They'd expected me to forget about Sophia, or to complain about her. They wanted reasons to remove her from my life. I wasn't going to give them any. Patricia came by with groceries I hadn't asked for. I thought I'd save you a trip to the store, she said brightly, unpacking things into my refrigerator. I watched her carefully. She spent a long time organizing the shelves, and I noticed her looking at the small calendar I kept stuck to the freezer. The one where I wrote my appointments. She was checking to see if I'd written anything down, checking for signs of confusion or forgetfulness. Thank you, dear, I said. That's very thoughtful. How have you been feeling, Mom? Any more confusion? Oh, I have my good days and bad days, I said vaguely. It was the kind of answer that could mean anything. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Well, we're all looking out for you. David was the only one who seemed uncomfortable. He called once, stammered through some awkward small talk, and hung up quickly. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But he'd still gone along with it. He'd still stood in that doctor's office and lied about my memory. Weakness wasn't an excuse. On the 10th day after the appointment with Dr. Reynolds, Amanda called. They filed, she said without preamble. Petition for guardianship and conservatorship. Marcus is petitioning to be appointed your guardian, with authority over both your person and your estate. My hands went numb. Even though I'd been expecting it, hearing it made it real. What does that mean exactly? I asked. It means they're asking the court to declare you legally incompetent to manage your own affairs. If granted, Marcus would have complete control over where you live, what medical care you receive, and all of your finances. You would effectively have no legal rights, no more than a child. I sat down heavily. When? The court date is set for 3 weeks from now. That's actually good for us. It gives us time to prepare our response. I'm filing our opposition tomorrow, and I'm also filing a police report regarding the theft and fraud police. My voice came out as a whisper. Yes. What they've done is criminal, Evelyn. The district attorney will need to decide whether to press charges, but with the evidence we have, I believe they will. At minimum, the police report will be part of the court record. This is really happening, I said. Yes, but Evelyn, listen to me. We have everything we need. Dr. Wilson's evaluation. The recordings, the bank records. When we walk into that courtroom, we're not just defending your competency. We're exposing exactly what they've done. They won't know what hit them. After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen for a long time. Sophia found me there when she arrived for her afternoon shift. They filed, I told her. She nodded slowly. Then it's almost over. Or just beginning. That evening, Marcus called again. Mom, I need to talk to you about something important. What is it, dear? Can I come over? This really needs to be a face-to-face conversation. Every instinct told me to say no. But Amanda had said to act normal, to not let them know I was aware of anything. All right, I said. When? I'm in the car. I'll be there in 10 minutes. I barely had time to tell Sophia and start my phone recording before he arrived. He brought papers. A folder full of them. Mom, I need you to sign some things, he said, spreading them across my kitchen table. What are they? I asked. Just some paperwork. To help me manage things for you. Pay your bills, handle your accounts. Make things easier. I looked at the papers. Power of attorney documents. Financial authorizations, medical proxy forms. He was trying to get me to sign away my rights before the court hearing. I don't understand, I said, playing confused. Why do I need to sign these? Because, Mom, he said, his patience clearly wearing thin. You need help, we've talked about this. You're forgetting things. Making mistakes. These papers just let me help you. But I'm managing fine. No, you're not. His voice hardened. Mom, Dr. Reynolds said you're not capable of managing your affairs anymore. This is for your own good. I don't want to sign anything, I said. His jaw clenched. Mom, please. Don't make this difficult. I'm not trying to be difficult. I just don't understand why. Because you're losing your mind. He caught himself, took a breath. Because you need help. Because I'm your son, and I'm trying to take care of you. Then why does it feel like you're trying to take everything from me? The words came out before I could stop them. For a moment, the mask slipped from his face, and I saw something cold and calculating underneath. That's paranoid thinking, Mom. That's exactly the kind of thing that shows you're not thinking clearly. Or maybe I'm thinking more clearly than you'd like. We stared at each other across my kitchen table. Harold's kitchen table. Where we'd eaten thousands of family meals. Where I'd helped Marcus with his homework when he was 8 years old. Where he was now trying to steal my life. You know what? Marcus said, gathering up the papers. I tried to do this the easy way. But if you won't cooperate, there are other options. Legal options. I see. The court will decide if you're competent or not. And when they see Dr. Reynolds' report, when they hear from all of us about your behavior, they'll make the right decision. I'm sure they will, I said quietly. He left without saying goodbye. I sat at the table shaking as his car pulled away. The recording was still running. He threatened you? Sophia said from the doorway. He warned me, I corrected. There's a difference. I sent the recording to Amanda that night. She called me immediately. This is good, she said. It shows his state of mind. His attempt to coerce you into signing documents before the hearing. Evelyn, I know this is hard, but every interaction like this just strengthens our case. How can this be happening? I asked. How did I raise children who could do this to me? Amanda was quiet for a moment. You didn't raise them to be this way, they chose it. And I know that's harder to accept than if you could blame yourself, but it's the truth. They're adults making adult choices, and those choices have consequences. The next 2 weeks crawled by. I knew my children were preparing their case. I imagined them coaching each other, getting their stories straight, maybe even getting Dr. Reynolds to embellish his report further. But we were preparing too. Amanda brought in Dr. Wilson for a deposition. He testified about my perfect cognitive function, my clear memory, my sharp mind. He was furious when Amanda showed him Dr. Reynolds' report. This is completely inconsistent with my findings, he said. I've been Evelyn's physician for 20 years. If she had vascular dementia as severe as this report suggests, I would have seen signs of it. There are none. Absolutely none. Amanda also brought in a forensic accountant who traced every fraudulent withdrawal from my accounts. The pattern was clear: systematic theft, carefully kept under reporting thresholds, using my own debit card that Marcus had access to. This is professional-level financial exploitation, the accountant said. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. We prepared my testimony. I practiced telling my story clearly and calmly, without emotion. Amanda warned me that my children's lawyer would try to make me seem angry or vindictive, to suggest I was creating this narrative out of spite or confusion. Stay calm, she coached. Stick to facts. Let the recordings speak for themselves. The day before the hearing, I stood in my garden. It was cold and most of Harold's plants were dormant for winter. But the old oak tree we'd planted when we moved in 45 years ago was still standing, still strong. I thought about all the years Harold and I had spent in this house. The Christmases, the birthday parties, teaching our children to ride bikes in the driveway, welcoming our grandchildren. So many memories, so much life. And my children were willing to erase all of it, sell it off to the highest bidder, just to get money they hadn't earned. I'm ready, I said out loud to Harold, to the garden, to myself. Tomorrow, the truth would come out. Tomorrow, everyone would hear exactly what my children had done. And tomorrow, I would take my life back. I didn't sleep the night before the hearing. I lay in bed, watching the shadows move across the ceiling, listening to the house settle around me. This house that held every memory of my life with Harold, every milestone of my children's lives. This house they wanted to sell. At 5 in the morning, I gave up on sleep. I got up, made coffee, and sat at the kitchen table watching the sun rise through the window. Harold used to say that sunrise was the world's way of giving you another chance. Another day to get things right. Today, Sophia arrived at 7, earlier than usual. She'd offered to drive me to the courthouse. "How are you feeling?" she asked, setting down a bag of fresh pastries. "Terrified," I said honestly, and angry, and sad, and determined. That sounds about right. Amanda had told me to dress conservatively but not dowdy. "You want to look competent and sharp," she'd said, "not like someone's confused grandmother." I chose a navy dress with a pearl necklace Harold had given me for our 30th anniversary. I did my hair carefully, put on lipstick. When I looked in the mirror, I saw myself, Evelyn Carter, retired teacher, widow, mother. Not a victim, not someone losing her mind. Just a woman ready to fight for her life. We arrived at the courthouse at 8:30 for a 9 o'clock hearing. Amanda was already there, her briefcase open, papers spread across a table in the hallway. "Ready?" she asked when she saw me. "As I'll ever be. Remember, they'll go first. They have the burden of proof since they're the ones petitioning for guardianship. Let them present their case. Don't react no matter what they say. We'll have our turn." At 8:50, my children arrived. They came as a united front. Marcus, Patricia, and David all dressed in their best clothes. Jennifer was with Marcus. Their lawyer, a distinguished-looking man in his 60s, led the group. When Marcus saw me, he smiled. Actually smiled, like we were all here for some pleasant family business. "Mom," he said, approaching, "I'm glad you made it. I wasn't sure that I'd remember." I finished quietly. "Or that I'd be able to find my way here." His smile faltered. "I didn't mean." "Yes, you did." Amanda stepped between us. "Mr. Carter, I'd prefer if you didn't speak to my client before the hearing." "Your client?" Marcus looked genuinely surprised. "Mom, you hired a lawyer. Mrs. Carter is perfectly capable of hiring legal representation." Amanda said coolly. "Now if you'll excuse us." We walked into the courtroom. It was smaller than I'd expected, more intimate. The judge's bench, 2 tables facing it. A small gallery of seats behind. I sat next to Amanda at the respondent's table. Sophia sat in the gallery directly behind me. Across the aisle, my 3 children sat with their lawyer. Judge Morrison entered at 9 o'clock sharp. She was a black woman in her 50s with intelligent eyes and a no-nonsense expression. "This is a petition for guardianship and conservatorship," she said, looking over her papers, "filed by Marcus Carter regarding his mother, Evelyn Carter. I see we have representation on both sides. Let's proceed." Marcus's lawyer, Mr. Thornton, stood. "Your Honor, this is a straightforward case of a loving family trying to protect an elderly mother who can no longer care for herself. Mrs. Carter suffered a stroke 8 months ago and has been experiencing progressive cognitive decline since then. We have medical documentation, family testimony, and evidence of unsafe living conditions that all point to her need for supervised care." He called Marcus to testify first. Marcus took the stand and Mr. Thornton led him through a carefully prepared narrative. The concerned son who visited regularly. The mother who repeated stories, forgot conversations, couldn't manage her bills. "Can you give the court an example?" Mr. Thornton asked. "Just last month, the electric company sent a disconnect notice because Mom forgot to pay the bill. She also wore the same clothes multiple days in a row, which she never used to do. She'd ask me the same question 3 or 4 times in a single visit. All lies." But he told them smoothly, confidently. "And what made you seek guardianship?" Marcus's expression became sorrowful. "I love my mother, we all do. But she's not safe living alone. She's not capable of managing her finances or making sound decisions. She recently tried to change her will based on paranoid delusions that we were trying to steal from her. That's when we knew we had no choice but to seek legal intervention." I felt Amanda's hand on my arm, steadying me. Patricia testified next with similar stories, the forgotten appointments, the confusion about dates. The time I supposedly left the stove on and didn't remember. That last one was particularly creative since it had never happened. David testified last. He was clearly uncomfortable, fidgeting on the stand, avoiding eye contact with me. "Mr. Carter," Mr. Thornton said, "do you believe your mother is capable of living independently?" "No," David said quietly. "I don't think she is. And why is that?" She forgets things. Gets confused. She needs help. Help that you and your siblings are trying to provide." "Yes." It was all so smooth, so rehearsed. 3 loving children, just trying to help their declining mother. Then Mr. Thornton presented Dr. Reynolds's report. "Your Honor, Reynolds conducted a comprehensive cognitive evaluation and found clear evidence of vascular dementia. His professional opinion is that Mrs. Carter lacks the capacity to manage her own affairs." Judge Morrison read through the report carefully. "This evaluation was conducted when 2 weeks ago, Your Honor, and Dr. Reynolds is board certified in geriatric psychiatry, Your Honor. The judge made notes very well. Does the petitioner have anything else? Just this, Your Honor. Mr. Thornton presented bank statements showing my accounts. These demonstrate a pattern of financial mismanagement. Unusual withdrawals, unexplained expenses. Further evidence that Mrs. Carter needs someone to manage her finances. Those were the withdrawals Marcus had made. They were presenting his theft as evidence of my incompetence. The audacity of it took my breath away. The petitioner rests, Your Honor, Mr. Thornton said, sitting down. Judge Morrison looked at our table. Ms. Chen. Amanda stood, and I saw something like a smile flicker across her face. Your Honor, the respondent has quite a different story to tell. One that I think will shock the court. Before we begin our testimony, I'd like to submit several pieces of evidence. She approached the bench with a thick folder. First, a cognitive evaluation of Mrs. Carter conducted by her longtime physician, Dr. Wilson, which shows perfect mental capacity. Second, bank records showing systematic theft from Mrs. Carter's accounts. And third, she paused for effect, audio recordings of the petitioners discussing their plan to defraud this court. The courtroom went silent. Marcus half stood from his chair. What recordings? That's, Mr. Carter, sit down, Judge Morrison said sharply. She opened Amanda's folder and began reading. The silence stretched out. I could hear my own heartbeat. Patricia was whispering frantically to Mr. Thornton. David had gone pale. Finally, Judge Morrison looked up. Ms. Chen, are these recordings legally obtained? Yes, Your Honor. Maryland is a one-party consent state. Carter was present for and participated in all conversations recorded. They are fully admissible. I'd like to hear them. Of course, Your Honor. Amanda set up a small speaker on our table. I'll play 3 excerpts. The first is a conversation where the petitioners discuss Mrs. Carter's supposed cognitive decline. She pressed play. Marcus's voice filled the courtroom. She's getting worse. Did you see how she couldn't remember what day it was? Patricia, that's because you kept telling her it was Tuesday when it was actually Wednesday. Marcus, we agreed not to gaslight her too hard. We just need to establish a pattern. Jennifer, the aide is a problem. She keeps everything too organized. Makes Mom look more competent than she is. I watched my children's faces as they heard their own words played back. Marcus had gone red. Patricia looked like she might be sick. Amanda stopped the recording. That was recorded 6 weeks ago. Now the second excerpt discussing their plans for Mrs. Carter's assets. Marcus again, this house alone is worth $500,000. Patricia, how much longer? Marcus, another month or 2. We'll have power of attorney by Christmas. Then we can start liquidating assets. David, quietly, what about the grandkids? Mom always said she wanted to leave something for them. Marcus, irritated, the grandkids are fine. They don't need handouts. We're her children. This is our inheritance, and we've waited long enough for it. Judge Morrison's expression had turned to stone. And the third excerpt, Amanda said, recorded after Mrs. Carter's appointment with Dr. Reynolds. Dr. Reynolds is voicey. Your mother is showing clear signs of cognitive impairment. Based on this evaluation, I would say she's in the early to moderate stages of dementia. Marcus, what does that mean for her care? Dr. Reynolds, it means she needs supervision. She shouldn't be living alone or making important decisions. She needs someone with power of attorney to help manage her affairs. Marcus, and this evaluation would support that. Dr. Reynolds, absolutely. I'll write a detailed report. Given what I've observed today, combined with the history you've provided, I believe any court would find that Mrs. Carter requires assistance managing her affairs. Marcus, how soon can we move forward? Dr. Reynolds, I'll have the report ready by tomorrow. The courtroom was utterly silent when the recording stopped. Judge Morrison looked at Mr. Thornton. Counselor, do you have any response to this? Mr. Thornton looked like a man who'd just watched his case implode. Your Honor, I was not aware of these recordings. I believe my client's representations to be truthful. I would request a recess to consult with. Denied, Judge Morrison said flatly. She looked at Marcus. Mr. Carter, did you pay Dr. Reynolds to provide a false evaluation of your mother? Marcus stood, his face flushed. Your Honor, I can explain. Did you or did you not pay Dr. Reynolds to provide a false medical evaluation? We were concerned about Mom's health, and we answered the question, Mr. Carter. Yes or no? Marcus looked at his lawyer, at his sisters, at me. Then, quietly, yes. And did you make unauthorized withdrawals from your mother's bank accounts? Silence. Mr. Carter, I can hold you in contempt. Yes, he whispered. Judge Morrison closed the folder. Chen, call your first witness. Amanda smiled. The respondent calls Dr. James Wilson. Dr. Wilson took the stand with quiet dignity. He'd been my doctor for 20 years, had seen me through Harold's death, my own health struggles, and countless check-ups in between. Wilson, Amanda began, how long have you been Mrs. Carter's physician? 22 years. And in that time, have you ever observed any signs of cognitive decline or dementia? None whatsoever. Mrs. Carter is one of my sharpest patients, regardless of age. Her memory is excellent, her reasoning is sound, and her ability to manage her own healthcare decisions is completely intact. When did you last evaluate her cognitive function? 2 weeks ago. I conducted a comprehensive evaluation at the request of her attorney. Mrs. Carter scored perfectly on every test: the mini mental state examination, the Montreal cognitive assessment, memory recall tests, problem-solving exercises. There is absolutely no evidence of dementia or cognitive impairment. Amanda presented the evaluation report to the court. Your Honor, you'll see that Dr. Wilson's findings directly contradict Dr. Reynolds' report in every particular. Judge Morrison studied both reports side by side. Dr. Wilson, how do you explain this discrepancy? Your Honor, I can't explain it except to say that Dr. Reynolds' evaluation is either grossly incompetent or deliberately fraudulent. Based on what I've heard in this courtroom today, I believe it's the latter. Thank you, Doctor. Amanda turned. Your witness, Mr. Thornton. Mr. Thornton barely questioned him. What could he say? The recordings had already proven the fraud. The respondent calls Sophia Martinez. Amanda said next. Sophia took the stand and I saw her hands trembling slightly. But her voice was steady. Ms. Martinez, you're employed as Mrs. Carter's home health aide. Yes, for the past 8 months. And in that capacity, you're with her nearly every day. 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. Have you observed any cognitive decline in Mrs. Carter? None. Mrs. Carter is perfectly capable. She manages her own medication schedule, her appointments, her finances. She does crossword puzzles, reads extensively, maintains her home and garden. She's more organized than most people half her age. Have you observed interactions between Mrs. Carter and her children? Sophia took a breath. Yes, and I've been troubled by them. In what way? They would make comments suggesting Mrs. Carter was confused or forgetful, even when she wasn't. They'd ask me questions about her competency, seemed disappointed when I said she was doing well. And they specifically asked me to leave the room whenever they wanted to have private conversations with her. Did you ever witness them attempting to manipulate Mrs. Carter? Yes. I overheard Mr. Marcus Carter telling his mother that she'd forgotten to pay a bill, when I knew for a fact that she'd paid it. When she questioned him, he insisted she was confused. It was... Sophia's voice broke slightly. It was cruel. Thank you, Ms. Martinez. Mr. Thornton didn't cross-examine her either. Your Honor, Amanda said. The respondent calls Evelyn Carter. This was it, my moment to speak. I stood and walked to the witness stand. My legs felt shaky, but I kept my head high. The bailiff swore me in and I sat down looking directly at Judge Morrison. Mrs. Carter. Amanda began gently. Why don't you tell the court, in your own words, what happened? I took a breath. I had a stroke in March. It was frightening, but I recovered well. I knew I needed some help, so I hired Sophia. My children started visiting more often, which I thought was nice. But then I started noticing things. I told the story chronologically, calmly. The comments about my memory. The suggestions that I was confused. The forgotten bills that I knew I'd paid. The attempts to get me to sign over power of attorney. And then one day, I overheard them talking in my kitchen. They thought I was asleep, but I wasn't. I heard them planning everything. How they'd convince everyone I was incompetent. How they'd sell my house. How they'd divided up my money before I was even gone. My voice stayed steady. But I could see Patricia crying silently at the defendant's table. That's when I started recording them. Not because I wanted to hurt my children, but because I knew no one would believe me without proof. An elderly woman saying her children are stealing from her. People would think I was paranoid or confused or exactly what my children wanted them to think, that I was losing my mind. But you're not losing your mind, are you, Mrs. Carter? Amanda asked. No, I'm not. I'm hurt, I'm angry, I'm heartbroken. But I am not confused, and I am not incompetent. Why do you think your children did this? I looked across the courtroom at Marcus, at Patricia, at David. I think they stopped seeing me as their mother and started seeing me as an obstacle. An obstacle to money they thought they deserved. They convinced themselves they were entitled to my home, my savings, everything Harold and I worked 45 years to build. And when I wouldn't just hand it over, when I didn't have the grace to die quickly or quietly, they decided to take it anyway. The courtroom was absolutely silent. Miss Carter. Amanda said quietly, what do you want? I want my life back. I want to stay in my home. I want to make my own decisions. And I want my children to face consequences for what they've done. Not because I'm vindictive, but because if they can do this to their own mother, they'll do it to someone else. Elder abuse thrives in silence. I'm choosing not to be silent. Thank you, Mrs. Carter. No further questions. Mr. Thornton approached for cross-examination. He looked defeated before he even began. Mrs. Carter, isn't it true that you've always been somewhat suspicious of your children's intentions regarding your estate? No, I said firmly. Until 8 months ago. I trusted my children completely. They destroyed that trust through their own actions. But you recorded them secretly. Doesn't that show a lack of trust? I recorded them after I overheard them planning to defraud me. That's not paranoia, Mr. Thornton. That's self-defense. He tried a few more questions, but I could see his heart wasn't in it. His clients had lied to him, used him as a tool in their fraud. He knew there was no recovering from this. No further questions, he said finally. Judge Morrison looked at both tables. Does either side have anything else? Your Honor, Amanda said. I'd like to note for the record that we've filed a police report regarding the theft from Mrs. Carter's accounts and the fraudulent medical evaluation. We're also requesting that the court refer Dr. Reynolds to the State Medical Board for investigation. So noted? Judge Morrison said. She closed her file folder and looked directly at my children. I have been a family court judge for 15 years. I've seen many sad cases, but this is among the most egregious. Mr. Carter? Mr. Carter, you conspired to defraud your own mother. You stole from her. You attempted to manipulate the court with false medical evidence. You tried to strip a competent woman of her legal rights for your own financial gain. Marcus had his head down. Patricia was crying openly now. David looked like he wanted to disappear. The petition for guardianship is denied. Mrs. Evelyn Carter is clearly competent to manage her own affairs, and frankly, she's demonstrated better judgment than her children have. I am also issuing a restraining order. None of you are to contact Mrs. Carter directly or attempt to access her property or finances. Any communication must go through her attorney. Judge Morrison turned to me. Mrs. Carter, I'm sorry you had to go through this. No one should be betrayed by their own children. Thank you, Your Honor. As for the criminal aspects of this case, that will be up to the district attorney's office. But I will be forwarding all evidence to them with a strong recommendation that charges be filed. This court is adjourned. The gavel came down, it was over. Amanda squeezed my hand. Sophia was crying happy tears behind me. And across the aisle, my children sat in ruins of their own making. Marcus tried to approach as we gathered our things. Mom, please. Don't, I said quietly. You had so many chances to stop. To do the right thing, you chose not to. Now live with those choices. We left the courtroom. I didn't look back. 3 months later, the district attorney did file charges. Marcus, Patricia, and David all pleaded guilty to reduced charges, elder financial abuse and conspiracy to commit fraud. Marcus got 2 years probation and had to pay restitution for the money he'd stolen, plus fines. Patricia and David got 1 year probation each. Dr. Reynolds lost his medical license. Turns out I wasn't the first family he'd helped with a carefully tailored evaluation. My children wrote me letters. Long letters full of apologies and explanations. Marcus blamed the stress of his job. Patricia blamed her husband's influence. David said he just went along with his siblings like he always had. I read the letters once and filed them away. Maybe someday I'll respond. Maybe someday I'll be able to forgive them. But not yet. The wound is still too fresh. I updated my will with Amanda's help. The bulk of my estate now goes into trust funds for my 5 grandchildren, with specific provisions for their education and future. My children get nothing. In the will, I explained exactly why, so there could be no doubt, no question, no room for them to make themselves into victims of my confusion. My oldest grandson, Tyler, came to visit last month. He's 16 now, and he apologized for his father's actions, tears streaming down his face. I didn't know Grandma, he said. I swear I didn't know what they were doing. I know, sweetheart, I told him. This isn't your burden to carry. Sophia still comes 5 days a week, though I need her help less now. She's become more than an aide. She's become a true friend. We have coffee every morning and work in the garden together. She's teaching me to use my smartphone better. I'm teaching her my mother's recipes. The house is quiet without my children's visits. But it's peaceful too. I wake up in the morning without dread. I don't listen for footsteps, don't wonder what they're planning, don't have to record conversations to protect myself. I'm working on a project now. A memoir for my grandchildren, telling them the truth about what happened. Not to poison them against their parents, but so they'll understand that love without respect is manipulation, and family loyalty has to go both ways. Yesterday I finished Harold's garden for the spring. I planted new roses, pink ones this time for hope. For new beginnings. For the life I'm reclaiming, one day at a time. I'm 72 years old, I survived a stroke. I survived my own children's betrayal. And I'm still here in my home on my terms with my dignity intact. They said I was losing it, they were wrong. I didn't lose anything. They lost me.